I think it's just a question of all of us having a better understanding of how that money is available. I mean, supposedly it's even available for towns to use for broadband. So, so that's, I mean, we haven't had a committee meeting in a while because there hasn't been any new news. But I think once we have a better idea of what the American Rescue Plan and how it's really going to be, spun out for us and what we can use it for, then I think we'll get back together again. And maybe in the meantime, there'll be some magic and they will actually decide about the grant. And we'll certainly let everybody know. So that's all I have to report. Mark, unless Mark has something more up to date than that.
No, I talked to my colleague in Livingston County, Livingston is the only other New York State county that has applied for the Reconnect grant, and they're hearing crickets as well. So it's not just us.
Okay, thanks, Van.
Yep.
Dave, A&O?
Yes, Cliff. The resolution's kind of the same as what we usually have for surplus equipment. Board of Elections contracts, renewal of contracts for ballots and machine maintenance. So that's pretty much it.
Any questions of Dave? Okay, Alex, Health and Human Services.
Okay, I'll repeat that. The first two were re-entering into agreements that we're presently providing services for. And then the budget mods, and I just want to bring your attention to the last one in there. The gift that was donated by the estate of Janine Ferriel from Oneida to the Youth Bureau.
Bless you.
I'm assuming a nice thank you has already been sent, but I'm not sure after we accept it. Do you know, anybody?
No, we'll find out. Mark is back.
From the Youth Bureau, so I don't see Tina here to ask her. But we'll follow up on that. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions? All right. I'll just quickly planning, just routine modifications of extensions of agreements and so on, as well as we're moving forward with the SAM grant from Rachel May for working on the park, and then the other grant for the trails that'll be going through. We hope to have shovels in the dirt by the fall. Criminal justice, Pete?
I can try to answer any questions about the resolutions if there are any, but what isn't showing up, a couple things that you might be interested in that came up during the committee meeting were from the DA's office. Some of you probably know that the local courts are starting to open. And as far as the county, their first trial is scheduled for June 22nd. Then the EM department looking at a Spillman CAD that includes the RMS systems that we've all heard about and needed in the sheriff's department, and upgrading the server that records the 911 calls. Looking at possible integration with Oswego County on that, and some shared service being provided. So one thing I want to mention also is that Supervisor Schwartz had brought up the concerns about the EMS agencies in the county and the workloads when an agency is failing somewhat. And I just want to say that, that is something that, when brought the attention of EM Director DeGear, that is not something that he's gonna fix. I mean, that falls on our shoulders, the Board of Supervisors, to alleviate those. That's been, the education has been brought to us about these agencies, and there's tools that we can implement. And I think that, if we want to be serious about this, that falls on the shoulders of the Board of Supervisors, that they can give us recommendations, but we need to take the action. So that's something that's, we can bring that to the board committee of the whole in the future and go back and review some of those plans and initiatives But again, I think that John Berrettini, I remember him saying one time at the committee of the whole that these agencies fail. The next morning, you don't have an agency, and I don't think it's it shouldn't be a surprise to us that this is probably going to happen in our county as well. So, thank you. That's it, Chairman.
Okay, everybody good? Okay, highway.
Hold on just a
Don.
second, Don. Can I just respond a little bit? Just, or think about that a little bit with Pete. I mean, that feels a little different than what I remember our efforts in the past. I thought our efforts were that we were going to have the county EMS help guide the towns and the agencies to try to find solutions. And I know it's difficult. Nothing's changed. It's just as difficult as it was. But when you say it's back on our shoulders, what does that mean? Is that the county EMS is washing their hands of it?
No,
I don't.
that's just, that's my perception of it when someone asks, in your case, ask Dan what we're going to do about that. I understand that the guidance could come from the emergency management, but that guidance has been given in the past and no action has been taken. And whether the time is right for action or not, that depends on us. That's what I'm saying, that, the guidance will come from them. The ideas can come from them. What we choose, what options we want to take comes from us. So, and the implementation of it comes from us. And it's not a pleasant situation, as many of you know, trying to get through this. But I'm just saying that if this is a concern of all of us in the future, that it's an action taken by all of us together.
I mean, I just met with SOMAC yesterday and, they asked me to reach out to Ron, and I'm going to do that after this phone call. After we have the Zoom meeting, I'm going to chat with Ron if I can keep him away from the pool long enough. And just, try to brainstorm, what is the opportunity? Because we do have some issues going on, as I understand it, with the Madison ambulance just not having staffing and, just the things that have been happening in various and sundry.
Yeah, and understood. And that's what I think that's where it needs to start, but understood also that there's a ripple effect between the two agencies that you're talking to. I mean, SOMAC covers portions of Lebanon, it covers, backs up Georgetown. So what I'm saying, this is, in my mind, that, it's a countywide solution as well.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Maybe it's time for another round, maybe it's another time for another round of trying to gather together and try to work on it together again, not just as supervisors to try to find a solution.
Unless you got the political fortitude, I'd forget it. It's a waste of time.
Okay, well,
No, you can do it, but
Yeah.
but when it comes down to the brass tacks, when the volunteers are knocking on your door and calling you, and you got to make a hard decision, you can't run the other direction. You got to make the hard decision.
well,
I agree. It would also with having attended a lot of those meetings, they're not pleasant. Different agencies, whether they be fire or they be ambulance, are very territorial. And to do something just with Dan wanting to go with a statewide or a countywide CON, got a lot of resistance as well. And it wasn't anything that was going to interfere with anybody. It was just going to try to help the situation, like the situation that Madison and you are dealing with right now. So we've got a lot of convincing to do. That's
right.
for sure.
Right. I mean, I heard the pushback about, there's so much suspicion about the application for the CON by the county. I mean, that's from my crew. So, yeah. Okay. Well, we don't need to vote any more time to this, but I look forward to working on it because we got to solve the problem because people are going to keep on getting sick and keep on needing to go to the hospital and go to, be rushed away and be dealt with. So the problem isn't going to go away. So.
Okay, Ron, highway.
Okay, on the highway, our resolutions are pretty standard. We don't have a lot exciting stuff there, which is good. Obviously the guys are getting done with winter schedule. They're onto the spring schedule and moving ahead with that type of thing. The highway garage, last Friday, there was 61 people working over there. So that's going gangbuster. It's really impressive. It's coming along very well. The Clarkville Water District, we're moving forward on that. The sewer for the county campus, we're not sure what we're doing on that, but the good news is the elevator is working. We got the sand out of the shaft. It's 8% faster than it was previously. So we're in great shape there.
8%.
So other than that, that's about all I got.
Rocky, was the elevator faster this morning? Was the elevator faster this morning for you? It was about 8%, Ron said.
Okay, any questions for Ron? Okay, solid waste, Mrs. Norelli.
Amy's on too, if you need anything, Yvonne.
Can't hear.
An agreement for piping and the cleaning services. There's been conversation as far as moving forward or the resolving the current leachate suspension, that we are not taking our leachate to Oneida. And we have let's see, that's not mine. Yeah, some paperwork and possible contract of someone working on some of the systems up there. Amy, you can add to that. I don't have my notes for solid waste.
Sure. So we have the solid waste management plan resolution. So that's probably our biggest resolution on the meeting today. We have a few solid waste disposal agreements. We have, I think Yvonne mentioned we do annual leachate line cleaning. So we have a contract with DECRA for that. And then we have a budget modification for about $50,000 of bulldozer repairs.
Are we going to get an update about the situation with Oneida in executive session or something? Is that coming or?
No, we got that, that's all pretty much taken care of. May 1st is when the target date to resume sending it. What's wrong with the bulldozer, Amy?
It was a lot of the track and drive for the bulldozer. We had rebuilt the engine a couple years ago, but it was nothing that had been rebuilt then. So it was, a lot of the kind of the undercarriage part of the bulldozer.
How old is that
Right.
bulldozer?
I don't have all that at my fingertips. Greg, I can get it from my deputy director. Greg is kind of running that for me right now.
Okay, you can send that over to me.
I can send it, sure.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. Does anybody else have any questions?
I've got one,
Yes, sir, Mr.
Chairman.
Corbin.
We've created two types of business, I guess. One is solid waste, which continues to come in, and then you created a new one for business, like landscapers and things like that. Where did those people fall prior to this new setup?
That has been the setup for even before I came on with the county. That was probably at least 5 years ago. They established a separate contractor category because some of those contractors are only really bringing incidental waste to our facility, to the landfill. But the hauler insurance requirements are much more substantial, including the $5 million umbrella policy, or I believe it's a $1 million umbrella policy. So that was created a while ago to address that issue.
So the insurance for the business type will be less than what the commercial haulers are.
That's correct, but the rates are the same for both.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Right.
what would that bulldozer cost to replace, number one? And secondly, are we going to have trash pickup for the towns this year?
We are scheduling some cleanup days right now. We have 4 on the books for this spring as of right now. So We are filling up on that. The bulldozer is in the ballpark of $450,000.
For a
Thank
new
you.
one, for a new
Yeah,
one.
for a new one. Decent.
How old is the old one?
That's what I don't have it in
It's-
front of me.
It's older, and the reason why we considered putting any money into it is because we did rebuild the motor just a couple of years ago. So with that idea, our expectations of this piece of machinery was to last another 5 years.
No
or
way
so.
that's gonna happen.
So,
I'll tell you that right now. That bulldozer being used the way it is every day is not gonna last another 5 years.
I'd be interested.
well, that was a couple of years ago.
Put
so.
on it annually.
To my way of thinking, you should put it on a replacement schedule before we start spending all this money.
Right, I agree. I think we should look at a lease schedule because those things they're tremendously, get a lot of tremendous wear up there, especially the bulldozers.
Right.
Not trying to second guess, just giving recommendations.
Yeah, I'll get all the information to you. Frankly, we are going to have another discussion at the committee meeting anyway, because as they got into this bulldozer, it's more extensive than what they thought. So, you
So
know,
Amy, it's
that-
gonna be more than 50 grand, you're thinking?
yes.
So what did the motor, does anybody know what the motor cost us? It had to be
I'm
50,000.
trying to pull the old resolutions. I just don't know it off the top of my head right now, but I can, if you want to move on to something else, I can pull it up. And then if you want to revisit in like a few minutes, I can have that information.
Just let Mark know. That's-
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have anything? No? Okay, what else do we have to talk?
What do you have?
Got nothing to do with this, but a story I'd like to share. After 58 years of teaching, had a brand new one happen today. And due to a lot of the technology out here, I guess. And been going crazy most of the year with the kids, most of them at home, and the technology and fighting this, but something new happened today. We were reviewing for a test tomorrow, and I called on this young lady in my class who happened to be not in the cohort that was in the classroom, but she happened to be at home. And I called on her and I said, Alexa, would you take the derivative of whatever it was, I forget now. And in the background, I hear this, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. And I was talking to her Alexa machine, picked up on what I asked her. And that was a new one.
Yeah.
But we
Alexa.
make our kids know.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Alexa doesn't know.
That's a good one.
We're still, I'm 2 weeks out on, as far as American Recovery Funds are concerned. We're supposed to be in guidance from the Treasury 2 weeks from now. I know the towns are really interested in that because, the towns typically don't have COVID-related expenses, so they're very minimal. We had a conversation with NISAC last week, and Steve Aquario was saying, what he's hearing is that it's going to be pretty loose. So let's keep our fingers crossed that is the case. They do want this money to be spent. So the treasurer's supposed to be coming out with some guidance. That was last week. He said 3 weeks. So we're probably looking about 2 weeks from now. As I get anything, I'll definitely pass it along to the supervisors. And we've gotten, on the state budget, I sent out the information for the supervisors. The biggest highlights are the 5% cut was removed. So we should be getting back all 20% of what was cut out of our funding from the state for last year, which is really good news. And, and just got to give a shout out to Joe Wazinski, Highway Superintendent and Chair of the President of the County Highway Superintendents Association. They lobbied really, really hard, and the county's going to get $1.2 million more between CHIPS and winter recovery and Pave New York money, which will really help offset a lot of the cuts that they had last year in their budget. So, Joe was on the news and being interviewed and going on different programs and stuff, and he did a really fantastic job working the Assembly and the Senate and getting some extra money, for the counties, towns, everybody. So that's really good news on the CHIPS.
We appreciate that, but New York State wound up getting a $12 billion bailout from the federal government to try to make them whole, and they still passed sweeping tax increases in New York State, which is ridiculous. and they managed to take and spend 2.5 billion. for-
2.1.
$2.1 billion for undocumented. That should really torque everybody in New York State. $2.1 billion for undocumented people in the country. Now, if that was here in Madison County, the solution would be if you can send a check to that person, knock on their door and sign them up as an American citizen and make them pay. Give them a social security card and they'd be part of the system. But nope. We got to play political games like the state does, one party rule, and it's ridiculous. And we all have to pay. We teach our kids, we try to play by the rules, be law abiding citizens. You're here illegally and you get a $15,000 check. That should make anybody in this state that's lived here mad. All part of the budget.
Well, we
Okay.
can all be high on dope, so we don't know what's going on.
There you go.
Ron's gonna be the first town to not opt out.
If you don't think that's not gonna cause problems, we're gonna have our share of issues from that too. And again, the state passes it and we'll have to deal with the repercussions from the whole thing.
Right.
We, Mark and I and Cliff had a meeting this morning with Mike Fitzgerald from DSS and Eric from Public Health and Tisha from Mental Health about mental health issues and how we don't even begin to understand the mental health issues of folks going, what's going on out there, the effects of this COVID, the effects of this legislation that's been passed. And we're going to try to put together some kind of a study to, again, Madison County would be first to do something like this. Nobody in the state's doing it, and we'll be doing it for the county to study mental health effects of, policies from the state, things that are going on with COVID, the effects of COVID. And it won't just be a year-long study. It'll have to be a, 2 or 3 year long study. And I'm sure as supervisors, you have all seen, people that are normal folks, but are not being rational in these times, and we're in some tough times, and it's going to take all of us together to figure out how we get out of it and what is wrong with our society today. So,
John?
Yes.
John?
yes,
Well, I appreciate that. Lynn and I have a grandson that's 12 and he's going through therapy because of all this, the anxiety and whatever. So it hits pretty close to home. So I can, truly understand and applaud you folks for doing that for this county. I realize that he's in Michigan, but still it really hits home.
well, I think that we've recognized it early on, and if we can do something and prevent it or try to come up with a solution for folks, and that's what we do in Madison County, and that's the end game here for this thing. So we'll see what happens. Peter.
Chairman, I'm not sure how many supervisors are aware, but there's a pilot program being proposed by state DAC about 12 and 13-year-olds having the ability to hunt with a firearm. And that is, the pilot program actually has to be, you opt in or opt out of this one as well. So by June 1st, we would have to have a resolution in place if the board decided so. I'm assuming I'm thinking it'd probably come out of planning.
I already sent it to Tina.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a local law.
I think you can do a local law.
Yeah, I just given a little bit of background on it so that, if we kick out the particulars, you can understand that. And what I've read, I think maybe Jim knows more than I do, but I believe New York State's the only state that does not have under 14 legally.
We're one of,
If we're not the only one, we're one of very few. Correct. And, it's another opportunity to try to get youth started down a path of outdoors activities. So, I'm glad you're moving forward on that. And I kicked it out to Cliff and such and wherever we go with that. But that, like I say, if it's done by June 1st, it's in the syllabus, which is your rules and regulations for the year for the hunting and fishing. If it isn't done until September, it would be on their website. So that would be the, impetus to move it
I'm not
forward.
sure we can get a
So-
look, I'm not sure we can get a local law passed by June 1st, but
Well, I mean, they just kicked it out, we're dealing with,
yeah, the state.
it's
I gave it-
impossible.
I gave it to Melissa. I know that Mark has reached out to NISAC to see if they have a model local law, but we'll get it so it goes through planning as
Right.
soon as possible and get
Right.
that. That's fine.
But, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, that gives an opportunity for supervisors to dig in and read up and understand it a little better before it pops up here too. So, thank you.
So Pete, I have a question. So this is, it's going to be, allowing it to be adopted county by county, or it's going to be a state, or we're commenting on the statewide proposal?
My understanding, it's a pilot program, county by county, you can opt in or opt out. So,
Okay,
that's kind of a novel approach, I think, but, that's the way I've read that it's going to be handled.
okay.
Yeah, and it's a pilot program through 2023, I think.
Yes.
So, and I think that it's a pilot program so that the state lowers the age for hunting. So,
Right. And you can read the details. They'd have to be accompanied, of course, by an adult and if physically present adult with them at the time. And so, but, this gives you a little bit of background so you can read up and see what it entails.
and my comment was, when my father was out hunting with my uncle in Montana, maybe 20, 30 years ago, he was hunting with my 12 and 13-year-old little cousins out there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty common out west, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tina, would you make sure Melissa brings that information to the planning meeting on the
I-
22nd?
I will, and she's on here, so she's heard you
Okay.
ask for it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
Pete, is
Melissa?
that small game only or what, Pete?
No, that'd be big game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I believe they currently have the opportunity to hunt with a bow and small game at 12 years old. So this would be the last restriction, so they could actually hunt big game with a rifle or shotgun, whichever implement's legal.
Mark, maybe you can send that letter from the DEC that you sent to me to all the supervisors that kind of give them a overview of it.
When I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I was out hunting, but I was driving. They put me in a spot and say, drive the deer to us.
Yeah.
That's what I did for
Yeah, that's how you
all those
learn.
years.
Well, I won't say anything.
Okay, nobody else has anything?
I just got one last thing. Emily sent an email to the board from Jennifer Cadet from Bridges, looking to interview supervisors on their perspective on the legalization of marijuana. I highly encourage, I talked to her, a nice young lady. She's just looking to gather some data, totally confidential. She's not going to put your name in the paper or anything like that, but would really like to speak to supervisors and get their perspective and take. Bridges is doing a study on it right now. So if you can call her, or if you need her number, Emily could resend it to you.
She wants it done by the 29th, I think.
29th, yep.
And with regard to that, there is a seminar tonight from 4 to 5. Hancock and Esbrook's putting it on. What municipalities should know about the new law. You can probably get on it through their website. We're going to have to make some decisions at the county level. You're going to have to make some decisions at your local levels. And hopefully we'll be able to give you an overview of what that is in the coming months. So I think the decision has to be made by the end of the year. So.
Yes, it does.
And you have to do a public referendum only if you're going to opt out, correct?
I believe that is correct.
But that's at the local level, or not at the local level, at the county level. I don't think at the town level you can do it.
You can opt out. The villages can opt out and ask for a vote from the village citizens. The towns can opt out. It's a permissive referendum, so they would have to do a petition in your town to trigger a vote on whether or not to legalize.
What is that, 2%? Is it, what's the percentage of?
3% sales tax for the municipality.
No. What's
No.
the percentage of people that have to sign the petition?
Oh,
and
I
force
don't
it to a
know.
vote?
5%?
10%.
And this is
10%?
just for the dispensing of it in your town or
Right.
village or.
Holy man, 10%.
Would have to sign. So in Sullivan, if you guys
That's
decided to
7,000
opt in or
or
opt
no,
out,
that's-
if you opted out, they can do a petition to challenge it. If they get 10%, then it would go up on your docket for a vote.
1,700.
And the
16.
sales tax revenue, it's, I think, 25% to the county and the rest of it goes to the local.
No,
it's
the county gets 1%.
1%, 3% to the municipality. There's a 4% sales tax on it for the locals, 4% for 3% for the town, 1% for the county. If it's in the village, it's 1.5%, 1.5%, unless the town and village come up with a different agreement.
So what is the total tax?
4%.
Well, that's just, yeah, it's like, yeah, plus 9% the state takes, plus another 4% in sales tax for the state. So the state's gonna be raking in some bucks, maybe.
But not for a couple of years, right?
Right.
But this is not on the growers, this is on the dispensaries, right?
Dispensers and retailers.
That seems way low for taxes.
It'll be expensive probably, Matt.
There you go.
If we put too much tax on it, Matt, they'll go to Massachusetts and get it for a lot cheaper.
What's the tax on tobacco?
Fill your boots. That's a long drive.
I don't know what the tax on tobacco is.
You don't have to worry about it. You'll be able to grow it in your backyard.
Yeah.
Well, what the states that have legalized it have found out that it's still cheaper to go to the guy on the street corner to buy it than to buy it through the state dispensaries.
Well, last time we were at NACO, the folks from Colorado were telling us, because that was 2 or 3 years ago, they said that you want problems, legalize it. And naturally with New York State, the problems will become the local problems and we'll have to deal with it. The state will wash their hands.
But there is some good news from one segment of the business. Eric let me know that the Dorito sales in Colorado went up 28% after legalization of marijuana. So that's good for the snack makers.
My daughter works for
I was
Frito
gonna
Lay. She'll
say.
get a bonus. Okay, everybody good? All right, we'll knock off till 2 o'clock.